I can you hear me? Before I go into what I had written, I must say that their song, There Is Hope, or it was a prayer, There Is Hope. That's exactly what they said, what the survivor said when he was asked, why didn't you commit suicide when you were in the camp? And he said, there's always hope. And it fits so perfectly here. And also that music, I had no idea that the violinist was playing that. I didn't know that. I want to introduce you, first of all, to my partner, Lee Rubin. She was the director and editor, and still is the editor. She edited all the latest, there she is. She edited all the latest, the ends where we reached the adults who were our kids. They're now in their 50s, and I asked them, please, tell me how the march changed your life, because you said on the film it would, and they gave us those beautiful responses, and she edited all of it. Let me just start for a minute. I'm going to come back to you, Lee. Lee and I are like sisters of different mothers today, even more so. First of all, it's a tremendous honor and privilege to be invited here. You're a magnificent group. If only there were more groups like you with your philosophy and your love, and your message is beyond belief. Thank you. I want to show my deepest gratitude to Linda, because it was her idea to bring it here, to bring the documentary here. She followed through, and it's a pleasure, absolute pleasure. And I want to thank also Cinda and Craig and all the people who worked hard to pull this together. And I want to thank all the temple people who are here, especially Rabbi Alti Weinreb and his wonderful wife Elizabeth. We love them to death, so much, to life, and not to death. And all the friends from the temple who are here supporting me. It means a lot to me. And to all my new friends here. And I really feel like I have friends here. And you live in Zionville, where I live. So we'll have to find out more about that. And my wonderful husband, who has been unbelievably supportive, working with me, really unfiltered. We love you. This is a first. I've always said that I've been showing the documentary to all the Jewish groups. I always wanted to show it to a non-Jewish group, because when you're talking to the Jews, you're preaching to the choir. The Jews know about the Holocaust. Many non-Jews do not get it. I know you get it here. I can see that in your faces. But it's wonderful to meet people who are interested in learning, and I hope others will, maybe you know others who we could go to. Somebody already approached me about a group, and I would definitely like to go to them. On that film, we were the first group to use all that Nazi footage. In 1988, nobody knew about the Nazi footage. Armand Hammer purchased it from Russia, and he put it into Brandeis University. And in the middle of winter, I was cruel enough to send Lee up to Brandeis in the snow, and she came back with all that footage, and we inserted it. Without that footage, it would not have been the same. And you notice how she edited it so that when the prisoners were coming in and off the train, she changed it, and it was the young people going off and on the train. And the walking, she did a phenomenal job of editing. She and I worked a year editing this at night, weekends, because we couldn't, we had our other jobs, our regular jobs that we were producing television, Jewish television. We had a network in Miami. The original film, The March of the Living, before I added Then and Now, because that's when I added the modern end, it aired on PBS stations for 10 years. Every year they repeated it. And the update was only completed a year ago. And we're so proud of it. And I'm going to cut what I was going to say because I want to tell you a couple of stories, and I want to hear your questions. One story that is amazing was when you saw us at the flag in the very beginning where Netanyahu was speaking. We used a certain kind of a battery for our cameras in 1988. They were these big block batteries. And they only lasted usually 20 minutes. And in cold weather, they lasted even less. And we had been marching. We had maybe 100, I'll ask her. We had so many of those batteries. And we got to the place where we really had to shoot what was happening there. I was at the remains of the crematorium. My cameraman says to me, come here, come here, come here. The red light is blinking. That means I only have a few minutes left of the battery, and it's our last. I said, that's not possible. We have to shoot this. This is the most important part. And everybody else was working. I took off. There were other television networks there. ABC Network was covering it. And I went over to ABC and I said, please, can I have one of your batteries? I borrow it, I'll give it back. And so he said, okay, but be sure to give it back. I ran all the way back to our cameraman, and I said, okay, let me put it in real fast so you don't miss anything. He said, well, wait a minute, it's still blinking. Wait till it stops blinking. It blinked for over an hour, and it shot everything. We got everything. And when we got back, Lee called up Anton Bauer Batteries, and they said, no, it didn't happen. That's not possible. That was one of our amazing stories. There was another story that I'm going to ask Lee to tell. Can you put her up?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, well, we want to see you. There you go.
Oh.
On the last day of the march, before we went to Israel, I was not going back to Israel that day. I was going the next day. I had to take care of some business with Israel. And she took the crew and was on the plane with the young people.
The American group.
I want you to tell the story.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Can you hear me? Hello?
Can you hear her in the back?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay, I'll speak up as long as everyone can hear me. Yeah, there were so many different groups from different countries. And the American group was the largest. I think it was over 200, Suzanne. And so we left at night. And what? Oh, 1,500, but I'm just talking about the American group. Right. So I believe Pan Am back then was the airlines. So we got to the airport in Warsaw, and a lot of survivors were with us. And one in particular, Nahama, as you saw her in the film. And we get to the airport, and they put us in this huge glass room. It was really weird. They wouldn't let us go to the gate. They just put us in this glass room. And everyone said, what's happening? What's happening? And we didn't know. Suddenly, Polish soldiers came, and they surround the room. And by that time, the survivors especially were freaking out because it reminded them of what they went through. And Nahama grabbed me and said, it's starting over again. I said, no, just let's keep calm. I was like, eh. So we waited like that for about 2 hours. Then they said, hurry up, get on these shuttles. And they put us on these shuttles. We still didn't know what was going on. And they drove us way, way out on the far runway of the airport in Poland. And we heard this sound in the background that sounded like tanks, and it was military tanks surrounding this plane, and they turned spotlights on the plane, and we were even more scared. And then suddenly the door opened and it said allow on the inside of the door, and the stairs came down and we all started crying. We didn't know what was going on. I thought Pan Am was coming, but what I learned later was the American Jews that were on the trip had been threatened by the PLO, that they were going to blow up our plane. And when Israel heard that, they said, we will send an El Al plane for them. And they were not, El Al was not allowed to land in Poland at the time. Remember, it was communist and there were no relations. So the Prime Minister of Israel called up the president of Poland and said, do you want more Jews to die in Poland? And he said, absolutely not. He said, I'm sending an El Al plane. He said, well, you'll have to disguise it so no one knows that you land. So within the 3-4 hour period of time, they painted the plane all white, so nobody would know it was an El Al plane. They sent it from Ben Gurion Airport to save us. And we got on the plane and we left. And to this day, I say Israel probably saved a lot of lives by doing that. They came and got us.
And I knew nothing about it. I was still in Poland. Thank you.
If anyone has questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Have you any questions? No questions. We had another interesting incident also when the kids were in Treblinka. We remember it was a real park. It looked like a park. You didn't know that anything had ever gone on there. It was so serene. And we had headsets on because we couldn't yell out to each other, go get that shot, get that. We had to talk to very softly because the kids were really feeling what we were feeling, but we had to work. We were feeling the same things, but we had to keep our mind on the documentary. And we had these headsets on, and then somebody said, I hear music. It sounds like choir music. And they all said, yeah, it does. It must be, the headsets must be picking up a radio station someplace. When we got back that evening, we talked to the people there. They said, there isn't a radio station within hundreds of miles. There's nothing there. You didn't hear a choir. And then when we interviewed the kids who were there, remember she said, I was sitting in the middle of the park, like the grass, and I heard music. So many of them heard music. And they weren't on the headsets. And there was no music. There was no music. Miracles happened. Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
Well, just that our crew was mostly, well, Gentile, I think half and half. And it affected them more than I thought it would. Like you saw in the video, one became a deacon, and the other, Gene, who was my audio man, he changed his life too. It was life-changing for them.
And they had to have therapy at night. They had never heard of anything like that. They didn't know what they were getting into. The Jewish kids knew, but the crew didn't know. And we had to have some therapy for them that night. They were hysterical. They had never seen anything like it. I wish we had had therapy too. It has changed my life. I know it's changed Lee's life as well. I now am dedicated to showing this documentary to as many people as I can, to get as many people educated. Because, as you know, hate and bigotry can be wiped out with education. You get to know somebody, you can't hate them unless they're hateful. But if they're good people, you can't. Flores? Wait. You want to come up?
I'll just be a mic runner, okay? Here we go.
I just wanted to mention that the March of the Living continues, and except for COVID. And I had my first grandchild who wanted to go with the group in Florida, and I was concerned about how it would affect him. And they had an adult bus. So my husband and I went on the adult bus, and they're very smart in their curriculum. They kept the kids on their buses with their curriculum, which they had explanations and studied history back in the classroom to prepare for this. And they had the adults with a separate person, historian, for us. And then every once in a while we would meet so that the kids, I call them children, but that the children would have their own experience. They always had debriefing sessions after this. It affected them similarly if you were standing on the outside. It affected all of us. And one of the things they did at Treblinka, which I thought was impactful, is they had parents write a letter to their child as to why they wanted them to see this and how did they feel about this. And the kids were given those letters at Treblinka, and each student picked a different rock to sit in front of and open that letter and then answer their parents. And so there were a lot of good things that came of that, and I was glad that I went. I did it again 2 more times. My grandparents were murdered in Auschwitz, and I was the first person that went back there to where they had died, and I felt good about that.
Yes.
And Suzanne, I just want to thank you for being here and presenting this today. When I was 22 and I just finished college, a group of 3 friends and I got Eurail passes and backpacked through Europe. And while we were in Germany, we went to Dachau. And so a lot of these images brought back that memory very vividly for me. And I don't know how anybody could visit one of those former concentration camps. And I don't... to Dachau, and I don't know how anybody could visit one of those places and not be affected by it. And when I turned 50, Dawn and I went to Poland for my birthday, and I couldn't go to Auschwitz. Having been to Dachau, I could not do that again because that experience was still with me so much. And I think it should be required for everybody to have a chance to visit one of those places and understand the history. And I don't know how you cannot go there and how you could go there and not be affected by it.
And I know we're in the middle of your presentation, and I apologize, but I wanted to share that one of the schools that I went to as a child, I think it was maybe 5th grade, they showed a movie with footage of the concentration camps. One of the girls fainted and fell into the aisle. And it left a huge impression on me. And then I was running an opera camp, and what was the name of that? The children in Terezin had been forced to perform an opera. What's it called? Terezin. That's it. But this opera, I had a summer camp with disadvantaged children that we funded to scholarship to come in, and we performed that. So I just wanted you to know that this isn't the first time that many of us have seen any of this. It's like I was raised with it, knowing it. And there are others that because of education have been educated about it. And it's happening again here in the US.
Yep.
I'm going to take this back to Suzanne for a bit before we see if there are others, okay?
That is our biggest fear right now. Biggest fear, seeing the signs of what happened in the 1930s, which led up to it. We see it here. And it's terrifying. And so many people just don't believe it. They just don't believe it. It's not really happening. It wouldn't happen here. And that's what they said in Germany. Yeah, it was awful. Thank you for sharing that with us. I was going to ask if anybody had been to Germany and to the camps, but I didn't. I wanted to cut it short because I wanted to get to speak with Lee and with all of you. It was the very first documentary. It was the very first March of the Living in 1988, and 1,500 teenagers went. Today, 10,000 go. I don't know how they handled 10,000. It was hard. It was hard handling 1,500 teenagers. Anyway, thank you so much for coming. If there are no more questions, yeah. Oh, there.
I just wanted to make sure that you got a chance.
Okay.
Yeah. Two teenagers was enough for me this week.
Hi, I don't want to ask this question, but because I really honor what you do and what your story that you're telling, it's very important for everybody to know. But you know, there are many of us that are really concerned about what's happening in Gaza. And again, I don't want to ask that question, but I did, when I was watching your movie, was thinking about the children that are also suffering there, and wanted to give you an opportunity to speak about that suffering that's happening now.
Well, I am not political, so I can give you what I feel, but I can't give you any facts. And I feel terrible that it happened. It's a horror going on in Gaza and in Israel and in northern Israel. And my feeling is we must get peace. We must. And our only problem is Hamas keeps turning down the peace agreements. And Hamas they don't care about the Palestinian children. If they cared, they would go for peace. They don't care, and they put them in harm's way. They put them in schools and in hospitals. And so when Israel bombs a school, they're not trying to get the children. God knows, Israel saves children. So there are so many children from Palestine, from Gaza, who come to Israeli hospitals every day. So, you know, it's war and it's hell. And I'm sure there's problems with Israel as well, taking steps that they shouldn't take, definitely. But if there were peace, Israel agreed to the peace. Why can't we get
Twice.
the Palestinians, the Hamas, to agree to it? How can we do that? Anybody have any suggestion? We would like that. This is important. We're scared. We're scared for Israel. We're scared for the Palestinians, for humanity. It's not just Israel. It's Ukraine, and it's Hungary, and it's South in Africa. It's
Korea.
all over, and it's worse than a world war. It's a earth war, and somebody's got to lead to stop it.